Bittermarks. Bittermarks. All right, welcome back to the Bittermarks podcast. I am Sasha. I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, my host, my co-host, Peewee.
Hello. Does that make me the villain?
In today's day and age, we're both faces, and none of this makes sense.
That's fine.
We are here and we're trying some new stuff here. We're recording from two different lands. You are in the land of Yorkville.
I am, and let me get this out of the way first. I hate this. The not being able to look at the person I'm talking to. This is terrible.
Well, I could help that by having a camera.
Sure.
Since we're doing this over Skype. But because I like to set my things up like they run in the 80s.
A caveman, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to deal with it. What's that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought I heard Tony. But no, Tony is not here this week. The rumors are not true. He has not quit. We are working on a new contract. That is the truth. And we hope to have him signed by next week. You'll be hearing the sweet, sweet voice of Tony once again. Don't worry.
God willing, you and I are not technical prowesses. We need Tony.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to do everything we can to get him to sign on that dotted line.
And you know what? We're actually blowing up this week in social media, in all sorts of internet analytics are showing the number one thing that people like about this show is Tony. So number two is a tie between me and you. And unfortunately, there's just, us three. So the people love Tony. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's you and I do. Absolutely. Very excited about this. We've gotten a couple episodes out already. We just signed a big contract with iTunes.
Hey, they approved us. How about that?
That blew my mind, and my wife was unfazed.
Yeah, I told Megan, and she went to sleep immediately. She did not care. I have framed that email, by the way.
Rightfully so. This is already blown up way bigger than I thought it was. Thank you to all of our tens of followers on Twitter. Don't tweet us.
I don't want to brag, but we did get a notice on our Twitter, and I assume it's because it's a rarity, but it said, "Congratulations, you now have 10 followers."
Wow.
So 3 of the followers are us who are on this show, but still,
that's 7.
Yeah, thank you to the 7 people that we also know very well for following us. We're going to do a thing where we decide who we should follow, because clearly they want us to follow them.
I like that. Okay, so we're going to have to come to an agreement as far as who we're following on this, what would you call it, on the joint Twitter account?
Exactly. I lead you in my broken English, and then you figure out what I'm saying, and then you say it better than I can.
Perfect.
Great job. I have a couple names, and I think that you're going to probably agree with them.
Jerry Lynn.
Oh, is this? Well, why don't you talk a little about your boy Jerry Lynn?
Do we want to get into this now? It seems like a big tangent that we're going on.
Well, how about this? Why don't you tell me why we should follow Jerry Lynn?
I can probably do that.
Now let's start with this. Jerry Lynn is known as the friendliest person in the history of professional wrestling.
Right. That would be my argument as far as following him, because I don't share that opinion of Jerry Lynn. Everyone I've talked to on the face of the earth, whether they're in wrestling, have wrestled Jerry, have just been a fan of his, everyone has told me he is the nicest person on the planet. Now, I've only had one-on-one experience with him, but that experience was terrible, and in my opinion, he was a giant dick to me.
Now, this was your son was born, and he knocked your son out of your hands? Is that what?
A big uppercut to Connor's chin, yeah. If we want the story, I can get into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Now, I should preface this. This story is probably either me blowing things out of proportion.
Very unlikely.
Or possibly Jerry Lynn was having a bad day.
Also very unlikely.
Yeah, honestly, it was one of the most awkward and surreal wrestling moments in wrestling and refereeing that I've had in the 11 years that I did it for. And then the fact that Jerry Lynn is involved with it is insane. So I was working. This was 2007, 2008, and I was working for a bunch of promotions all over the country, and that includes the local promotions to us in Illinois, including AAW. Danny brought me in along with a couple of our other guys. I think the twins were on that show. The Phoenix twins were on that show, and I think that was my in. So I was doing a couple shows, became friendly with Danny and a couple of the guys in the locker room. And eventually they just started booking me regularly, and eventually I did a show where Jerry Lynn was wrestling one of the AAW regulars, which was cool. It's awesome just to be on a show where a name is on it. And Jerry wasn't even the main event of the show. Jerry was probably, fourth from the top. That's just how they did it in AAW back in the day. They would just bring in guys who could go, and they would just put them on the card randomly, and they would bring people in. I think the twins were probably on top during that show, where, I think they were wrestling Seth Rollins, Tyler Black at the time.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, crazy times.
So who was Jerry Lynn wrestling? Do you remember?
And I don't remember. Again, my memory's terrible. Luckily, I remember that Jerry Lynn was the other side of the story.
Yeah, and I'm interested because obviously I go to AAW shows now, and I know a little bit more than I did before.
Sure,
so.
But again, this was 12 years ago. Jesus Christ, this was 12 years ago. Odds are the person he was working is not in the business anymore. He's probably not alive anymore.
Hey, John Oliver.
So I was just excited at the time, too. I was a big ECW fan, like we talked about in previous episodes. I was just excited to see Jerry Lynn's name on the roster when I came into the building that day. I get my gear on, and the way it works when there's more than one referee on the show is usually the promoter or the head referee of that promotion, which wasn't me, just goes down the list and they write referees' names next to each one of the matches. So then after the referee or the promoter goes through and does all that, the other referees come up to the board, take a look, and they see, what number matches they have. So as a referee, you have to remember, I've got the first match, the fourth match, the fifth match, and the main, or whatever it is. So at this point, I go up to the board after everything's said and done, and I get very excited because my name is next to the Jerry Lynn match. Now, I've done a bunch of names before. I've been the referee for a bunch of matches that have big names in it. Jerry Lawler, Brian Christopher.
Huevos de Oro.
Right. Other members of the Lawler family. So I'm thrilled. That said, even though I've done these kind of matches before, I've never reffed a Jerry Lynn match. So that's another name I can cross off the list of guys that I want to work with. So I get with the guys, and like I said, they're going on fourth from the top. So I've got some time before I even need to talk to them to figure out the finish. Eventually on this podcast, I'll even just get into how a referee goes through the day-to-day on an average indie show, and just tell you exactly how it works. But in short, I wouldn't even talk to Jerry and the guy he was working with until after the third match or so. Because at that point, I need to just worry about the matches that I've got before then. And then once their match gets closer, then I can get with them. And literally, as a referee, all you ask them is, first thing you ask is, hey, you introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Dan. I'm going to be a ref tonight. What's your finish? What are we doing here? I don't remember what the finish was. It was probably Jerry hitting that package pile driver. And so they explained to me whatever the finish was. And then after that, as a referee, you also ask, okay, thanks. Is there anything else I need to know? If there's a spot, if there's a spot where they need the referee to interject, if they need the referee to definitely get between them in a corner, if they need a referee, a lot of times guys go over and above as far as what they explain to the referee and what the referee needs to know. Sometimes I'll have guys explaining to me, we're going to brawl on the outside, just make sure you don't count us out. Random stuff like that. Or, he's going to have me in the corner. He's going to go up for the 10 punches. Make sure you don't count to 5 and don't disqualify him. Well, no shit. Of course. That's now you're wasting my time. You're wasting our time. Let's get moving here. So Jerry was a professional. He just literally said, okay, here's, our finish is my move, whatever he called it, that pile driver. Other than that, nothing else. Just the average, 2 counts, stay on top of your toes and see you out there. So I went on with the rest of the backstage stuff, waited for that match to start, and then when it did start, referee goes out first. Then they introduce Jerry, introduce the other guy, and we're off to the races. First 5 minutes of the match, everything's fine. Then the heat starts. Jerry, I believe, was working as the babyface, I think. I don't think it matters, but I'm not sure as to what side he was on.
He's got to sell shirts at intermission, so...
Sure. But that's the weird thing with indies. Like sometimes they'll take a smaller guy like Jerry and they'll just make him a heel for the hell of it because they know he can work and they can put him in there with a younger guy and everybody benefits other than Jerry's pocketbook at intermission. So for the sake of the story, I'll say he was the babyface. So the heel starts putting some heat on him. That had to be what it was, because then the heel goes for a cover mid heat, and then I hit my knees and start my count. 1, 2. Jerry kicks out. We're good. 2 count. Typical. Every match you see it a million times. But on this specific occasion, this is the first time I'd ever had this happen. 1, 2, kick out. And then I hear Jerry go, "What the fuck?" So, and at this point, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Maybe he heard it. Maybe he's injured. Maybe there's something that the other guy did. Maybe there's something that I did. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that I heard Jerry go, "What the fuck?" So we continue with the match. They keep going. And, Jerry probably hits a hope spot. Back to the heat. Another pin. 1, 2. And now Jerry kicks out like right as I'm hitting 1, 2, kick out. There was no attempt for me to go for a third. It was just 1, 2, kick out. And then, and now at this point, Jerry gets up and just glances at me for the slightest second. But for that very, very brief moment in time, Jerry was staring daggers at me and he wanted me dead.
I would have passed out.
And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. This was 2007, 2008. I'd already been in the business, 6, 7 years at this point. I'd already worked for TNA. I'd had experience. Like, I know how to, this is going to shock you, but I know how to count to 2.5. Like, I'd never had anyone in my entire career up until that point. I'd never had anyone ever have any negative thing to say about my reffing. Now, that's not to say that they didn't have thoughts on it. Just I'd never had anybody share it with me. I'd never had anybody get pissed at me in the back. And this was Jerry getting pissed at me mid-match. So after that glare, I knew that I was doing something wrong in Jerry's eyes. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I'd rubbed him the wrong way somehow. And at that point, I just wanted to get out of there. So now I'm trying to extinguish the problem. And during rest holds, I'm trying to whisper to both these guys, what's going on? What is there something I'm doing wrong? What's the problem here? Like, and then I'm also checking his arm. Like, do you give up? You give up? You blah, 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 blah. And then whispering, like, what the fuck did I do? What are we doing here? And it's no response. No explanation in the ring.
Wow.
And right. So again, I'm still shitting myself. I don't know what to do. Blah, blah, blah. We go through, Jerry hits his comeback. So after all that, there was only one more count, and it was just the Jerry hits his finish, and then I go in for the 1, 2, 3. And that one was obviously no problem because there was no cadence to anything. There was just lay down for me to count to 3, so it didn't matter how long or short it took me to do it. After the 3 count, I raised Jerry's hand reluctantly, like on his side, not on my side, but like he didn't want me near him. He's still pissed off. And then I just scurry off to the back. Luckily, I didn't have to ref the following match. I get to the back, and now I'm waiting for, like you do the customary thing, like the polite thing to do at this point would be to wait for him to get to the back and ask him, "Hey, man, I'm sorry for whatever happened out there. Whatever I did, I apologize for." And then from there, try, if he's willing, allow me to dig in and see if I can figure out what I did wrong. Because he's Jerry Lynn, I need to show respect, and I can't just be like, "Hey, Jerry, what the fuck's your problem?" I need to, and that's the way it should be. I absolutely should not be pressing him to try to figure out what the problem is. I should just apologize for whatever it is, and if he wants to share it with me, I should accept that. So even before I get to the back, and before I could say anything to Jerry, he storms through the curtain and walks right up to me. I'm going to say he put a finger in my chest, but this is, every story I've heard about Jerry Lynn is he's the nicest guy in the world. So I can't picture him putting a finger in my chest. And my memory's terrible. But everything about this, it does give me the sense that he had his finger in my chest saying, "You don't ever fuck with somebody and their wrestling count when you're doing a 2 count." And I'm still I haven't even gotten my apology out yet. And I'm just in awe of Jerry Lynn in my face yelling at me about the cadence of my 2 count. What the fuck were you doing out there? I'm trying to kick out and you can't keep a solid 2 count? And he's trying to give me examples of, you're counting 1, 2. And just, I'm having a hard time explaining it because I can't show you with my hands how the cadence goes. When you're kicking out, you have to listen to the referee's voice, you have to watch where his hand's hitting, and you have to watch where his hand's coming down. The cadence with all that has to be in rhythm for each count so the guy kicking out doesn't have to watch the referee's hand the entire time. He should just be able to listen and hear. If the cadence is off on any of that, obviously he could fuck it up and he'd stay down for a 3 count when he shouldn't.
So he's kicking out early because he can't tell based on your cadence.
Correct.
According to him.
That's exactly what's happening. He's trying to be on the safe side. He doesn't want to wait till 3. He doesn't want to stare at my hand and make it look fake. He just wants to hear the audible sound of my hand hitting the mat as well as me vocally counting. But in his opinion, I'm not saying it in cadence. I'm off with my count, which is very hard to do if you're only counting to 2. There's only so much rhythm you can get with going from 1 to 2. But the entire match, he was getting on me for not having my cadence be regular. Jerry, if you're listening to this story has to stick out to you. This can't be something that happens on every show. Please reach out to us and explain to me what I'm missing. What happened here? Because to me, after this, like I said, it's a 2 count. There's only so much I can do. For you to come up to me, and this is me getting bitter about this, for you to come up to me afterwards and put a finger in my chest and accuse me of doing something that is near impossible, that rubbed me the wrong way.
And now you want to follow him on Twitter.
That's right.
So how did it end? After he said that to you,
he stormed off, and I never talked to him again.
And that was it.
That was it, yeah. There was nothing I could do. By that time, the locker room had, there was a small circle around us. Guys making sure that it wasn't getting out of hand, which obviously it wasn't going to. I'm a small guy. And it's fucking Jerry Lynn. Just the yelling alone, and I'm assuming the content of the yelling because it's fucking ridiculous, that garnered the attention of everybody else in the locker room.
I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Please do.
I'm gonna put this as a most likely follow Jerry Lynn. And if you want to know if we follow Jerry Lynn, you check tomorrow and you see if we're following him. I actually listened to Jerry Lynn and Mikey Whipwreck's podcast.
Okay.
They have a podcast together. It's a crazy podcast. It's really good. It goes in depth. It's nothing like no news, no results, no, hey, we watched this and this is our opinion. It's just like, hey, remember that time we were in Peoria, Illinois, and we were supposed to be in Philadelphia?
That's okay, as long as you can tell a story.
Yeah.
That makes a good podcast. That's why I was hesitant to even do this podcast. As you can tell from the Jerry Lynn story that I just told, I have no storytelling ability to follow a straight line.
I disagree with that.
That story was all over the place. That was just thinking about that story back over in my head. I haven't told that story in 6+ years.
Well, also you didn't know that I was going to ask you to say that story, so I think you did a pretty good job with it. And once the power of editing goes through, I mean, you're going to sound like a goddamn Rhodes Scholar.
Oh, cut to this being released and it being unedited as fuck.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Love it.
So, yeah, I'm going to get to the bottom of this, and I'm either going to pay Jerry Lynn to do our open, or I'm going to just tweet him so much that we're going to get an answer on this. Also, at the same time, now that I am a AAW fan and I go to most of the shows, and I've talked to guys like Danny, Mike Petkovich is the other guy who's over there. He always does the STF Underground podcast, and obviously...
Okay.
Doug E. Wrestling has connections with AAW over there.
Sure.
So I'm gonna get the tape from this match, and we're gonna do a cadence watch party at a place to be decided later.
I would love that.
All right. So you're obviously then for following Jerry Lynn on Twitter. Is that correct?
That's where. Oh man, that's why you're good at this. I forgot why we even started that conversation. That I don't remember why I told that story. This all started because we were figuring out who we were and weren't going to follow on Twitter, and I jokingly said Jerry Lynn. Yeah, it's because of that. Sure. Yeah, if we can get to the bottom of this.
Okay, and I will let you know my decision tomorrow. So whenever you're hearing this tomorrow, check our Twitter to see what's going on. And maybe he'll be intimidated by our 10 followers. That's all I'm saying.
At bittermarks. Make it 11.
Oh. All right, then. So outside of that, I know you don't have a story about a couple of these next participants of who should we follow on Twitter and Instagram. The next one is Vince Googling, which is an account. It's a parody account, but it's things that Vince McMahon would Google. And it's goddamn one of the funniest things on Twitter.
You are the one that tipped me off to this Twitter account. I'm a big fan of this one. I follow this one on my personal account. And I'm a fan. I would love to follow this one on the bittermarks account just to allow more people access to follow it. It's one of the best accounts on Twitter.
Vince Googling gets 2 yeses. Congratulations, Vince Googling.
You've made the cut.
Now, the next name that I'm going to bring up is Kayfabe News. Are you familiar with Kayfabe News?
I am.
Kayfabe News is a good follow. It's fake wrestling stories, but a lot of people get caught into it thinking that they're real wrestling stories.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's...
I didn't think about that aspect of it. Normally, I think I've said this before, I normally just get my wrestling stuff from Reddit.
Yeah.
So every time there's a decent Kayfabe News headline, it'll be one of the top posts. In that case, I don't. Just on that sense, I was saying I was on the side of not following them. I don't particularly think they're super funny. I don't.
That makes 2 of us, actually.
Okay, but I like where you were going with that. In that, if we follow them on Twitter, you can see the people who actually buy into the onion-like headlines. I
thought I was going to get you with that one. I thought you were going to want to follow that one because it is entertaining sometimes. It's not a bad Twitter.
That's
at
the
all.
No. The articles are not entertaining. The watching people buy into it, that is the entertaining
on anything. Part. It's just the headlines. It's the way.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's like
100%.
The way that some people read their news on Yahoo. The next name we're actually already following on Instagram. So we have to decide whether we're also going to follow this person on Twitter. Now, since we're only following one person on Instagram,
I'm not an Instagram guy. Like, I don't have a personal one, and I literally didn't know until right now that we had one for the show.
Oh yeah, we have 7 followers, I believe.
Can I guess who we follow on Instagram?
Yeah, and you got it before you even guess. You know who it is.
Okay, it's Chucky T.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. That's amazing.
So that's the only person that we currently follow on Instagram.
Okay. Does he post on Instagram?
Oh yeah, all the time. It's pictures of him and Orange Cassidy.
I gotta get on this. Okay.
It's the only reason to be on Instagram. So I'm gonna guess that you're a yes for Chucky T on Twitter as well.
I'm a yes for Chucky T everywhere.
We're gonna get Chucky T and Jerry Lynn on this podcast together. All right, and then the last one that I have is one that it's an interest that we share. It is the Major Wrestling Pod. So Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, they have a wrestling figure podcast. We are both obviously fans of this, and by obviously I mean because we both know each other and we both listen to it. Do you think we should follow the Major Wrestling Pod?
Yeah, that's another one where just the content is so good. Maybe not on their tweets so much, but it's just because I don't know what they tweet out. But their podcast is so good that any promotion that we can do for them is better. That's a fantastic source of content. If you guys aren't if you're downloading this podcast instead of the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, you're a fucking idiot.
True. And that being said, I'm going to say no. I love their podcast. They're both hilarious, and I'm willing to change my opinion only after they answer one of our questions on Casey James.
Sure.
Because we have tweeted at them multiple times from multiple accounts talking about Casey James action figures. And while they have responded on Twitter, they have not emailed us back to be on our show.
When did they respond on Twitter?
I think they responded to me a while ago. I said something like, hey, is there a Casey James action figure? And they responded, no Casey James, which is not even a good enough response for me. I need a, wow, Casey James, or, hey, does it come with cigarettes? Like something remarkable is what I need.
That would be, the cigarettes as an accessory, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, like Dusty Rhodes has the hat and the sunglasses.
Yeah. Kurt has a the deluxe pack where he comes with an actual Cadillac car. I almost, speaking of that podcast and trying to get them to talk about Kurt or Casey James, I almost, when they do their T-shirt promotions, I considered spending $20 on a T-shirt just to have them call me so I can ask them about Casey James.
Oh, yeah, me too. I almost did the same with Tony Schiavone, who never worked with Casey James.
Oh, here's what we should do. We need to buy a T-shirt, and then when they call, ask them to do an intro for this show.
I don't think they will.
If we can get them to say enough words, we can chop it up.
That's true. We might have to buy like 4 shirts to get enough time. But I definitely need a couple Stang shirts in my wardrobe. And if you don't know what that is, go listen to the Major Wrestling Pod. But don't follow them until Casey James is mentioned.
I agree with that.
Do you have any wrestlers, wrestling accounts, non-wrestling accounts, anybody that you think we should put into the bucket?
I probably should have foreseen you asking me that question, and I probably should have done some homework in the time that you were leading up to this.
It's okay. I think we're good. This is a
SWK. That's about all I got.
Well, let's see if he responds to podcast episode number 3. I know he's listened to 1 and 2, but depending on how he responds to number 3, maybe we'll talk about it next time. Also, by the way, he is responsible for getting me a hotel for Double or Nothing in Vegas, so we should probably follow him no matter what.
There you go.
But no, we'll talk about it. All right, so we are recording this right now, and I'm a little bit upset because it's late Friday evening. And it's cutting into my Impact Wrestling time.
Oh, didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I know you didn't, because you're inconsiderate as a friend. So, I'm 36 years old. I'm about to be 37, and that's the ripe age for me to get back into the business, right? I want to work again.
The people are asking for it.
People are asking for it. I got the connections in AAW. I got a letter of recommendation from Jerry Lynn. The only thing is, I need a name, because when I wrestled, when I was a young man, I wrestled under a mask, and my name was Huevos de Oro. And before that, obviously in the backyard scene, I was Mr. Main Event. So I came up with a name, and I wanted to run it by you to see what you think. So my name is Sasha. What do you think about using the name Nico as a first name?
Okay.
Because it's a name, and it's not a popular name.
Yeah, no, there's no other wrestling Nico.
It's a pretty good name. And then my last name, Leech, like the bug. Nico Leech. All E's. NEEKOLEECH.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then my nickname could be All E's. But like Ease, EASE.
I don't think we should release this podcast. As soon as that gets out, there's going to be a Nico Leech in every indie promotion across the land.
All right. Well, now I'm going to blow your mind a little bit more. What did you think of that name overall?
Oh yeah. I mean, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It's going to be hard to top that.
Okay. You're going to have to stick with me on this one. There's a little explanation that's going to go along with it.
Okay.
But you're going to see where it goes, and I think it's going to be 11 out of 10. Or maybe it's going to be 4 out of 10. I don't know. We'll see. So you've heard of our Hispanic friends when they say, "Ese," right? Conan would have said that once.
Yeah, Juventud, sure.
What does "ese" mean? Does that mean like, hey, friend?
I was going to say friend, yeah.
So what's better than a friend besides 2 friends, right?
Okay.
So what if I'm the double essay Nico Leech? And why does that make sense? Because you spell my name S-A-S-A. 11 out of 10 or 4 out of 10?
I don't know. I'm not
Zero,
even over.
Zero
it hasn't
out
even
of 10.
sank in yet. I liked Nico Leech on its own. I like the absurdness of double friends.
Double essay.
Double essay. Yeah, all right. Sure. 11 out of 10.
Yes.
You got it.
Yes.
Get Randy on the phone.
All right. Squeeze the fish.
Oh, you didn't know?
Okay, so if you missed our first few episodes, this segment is where we talk about the random pieces of wrestling trivia that should have been obvious to us and just weren't for whatever reason, and they smack you in the face now when somebody has to draw it out for you. I think the classic example is going to be that Bret the Hitman Hart's finish was the sharpshooter because he's a hitman. Boom.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever going to beat that one.
I agree.
I think that's the point of this segment from now on, is to try and beat that one.
Okay, there you go. All right, well, I've got another one for you this week. Let me know if I can compete with Bret Hart's. Phrases that we've heard forever, and I have, at least for me. Again, I always worry about this because it's always like, well, it hit me over the head like a ton of bricks, and you're going to be like, well, you're a fucking idiot. Of course that's the way it is. A term that we've always heard since the beginning of wrestling time is referring to a belt as a title. That championship title, that championship belt. Right?
Okay.
I've always just cross-referenced when he's talking about the title, he's just talking about the thing on his waist. Do you know that when they're referring to the title, they're literally referring to the name on the belt, the title of champion. They're going to get the title off of this guy.
Where'd you get this nugget from?
Reddit. This was a post in the last 2 weeks.
Interesting.
I was like, that's perfect. Do you understand what I'm saying? The title isn't referring to the physical belt. It's referring to the namesake.
North American champ or whatever it is. That's interesting.
Right?
It's no sharpshooter. It does make me think.
It's at least...
And I didn't know that. For sure.
But it makes sense.
I don't know. It makes sense for sure. I just don't know if I believe it.
Okay.
I have tried using Reddit 3 times. And all 3 times I have failed using Reddit. So you're going to have to source someone better than that to get me to...
I have no sources on it. I can't confirm that Brett's thing is legitimately connected.
Brett's is legit.
It has to be, but...
I am now the source.
Yeah. So the title... and the belt being 2 technically different things, but always being referred to as the same thing.
I like it. I thought it was a Vince thing. You know, the Vince, don't say the belt, say the title.
I always heard it was don't say belt, say championship. I just don't think... Vince doesn't want the term belt on TV because a belt holds up your pants.
But why wouldn't he want that?
I agree. It's Vince. I don't know. Vince, if you're listening, feel free to tweet us. Vince is the only one that has permission to tweet us about this segment.
All right, so we actually got a tweet this week. This tweet comes to us from @KimJong-ilmatic, and it says, listening to episode 1, the talk of the pit reminds me of the Big Don's event there. Wondering if you guys could devote a series of podcasts to Big Don Promotions superstar, The Raper. What a great idea for a podcast. I love it. Fuck at Scoop and Poop.
Are we going to peek behind the curtain and say who this really is?
I don't know who this is. This is one of our followers, so...
Okay, so we're not.
Kayfabe, bro.
I didn't remember most of the content from this tweet.
Okay, so we talked about the pit. The pit was where we held our backyard wrestling events.
It's where it all started. The DCWA started at the pit, sure.
Were you aware or not that other people did shows at the pit?
Unaware. Had no idea.
I kind of remember it, but chair shots.
That's unbelievable to me. Were they doing it to try to pay... This is me going to be tooting our own horn here, but for a backyard fed, we were pretty big. Was it other people trying to emulate us?
No, I think it was just like, wow, this can happen here and nobody comes to bother you.
Okay, that makes more sense to me. Okay.
Wondering if you guys could devote a series of podcasts to Big Don Promotions, which I assume their name wasn't Big Don Promotions, but I do not remember their league. Superstar The Raper, which I definitely do not remember.
Also
The Raper.
Do not remember.
I think I would remember. I don't. What I do remember, Big Don and those guys used to wrestle across the street from Roach's house, which was another venue.
Our secondary location when the pit wasn't available, or once we got banned from there or something.
Whatever happened over there. I remember we went to one show in their backyard. You remember anything over there?
I remember going to one show. Like I said, we were pretty big and they were pretty small. And I think they wanted to try to impress us and possibly earn a spot in some of our roster. And all I remember is them trying to do some stupid backyard deathmatch shit, and us turning our chairs around and refusing to watch to encourage them not to light a table on fire or something.
Wow,
that's all I remember about it.
Yeah, I definitely don't remember that. I do remember we used to go to some other backyard leagues and even participate. I don't even know if we were invited, but we'd always end up participating. There was SWK's backyard fed XBB in Hanover Park, which is actually like across the street from my house. I ran by his old house the other day.
I mean, that's the one. That was the promotion with the bear, right?
Yeah, the bear.
I never saw anything of it. I always heard about the bear.
They had the bear. They had the janitor. They had Alan, the naked brown man, who was just like a Filipino kid, I believe, who would just like run around naked. And I believe he is the cousin of Ruby Gaba, if you remember Ruby Gaba. But yeah, so SWK, who's our good friend of the show, obviously.
I can't believe you dropped Ruby Gaba's name before we've mentioned Worm on this whole thing.
Who's Worm? I don't know a Worm. And then my buddy John, who I was eventually in a band with, he was like their commentator, and he would just sit and like drink beers and smoke in this backyard. And it would be like 11 a.m. on a Thursday. I remember we did some of their shows. There was a kid that named Matt Rosenthal who did shows in Glendale Heights. He was like a ECW fan and a DCWA super fan as well. Okay. I went to their show one time. I think even like his dad came to our shows and stuff. There's obviously us, BCW.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to bring up was BCW.
Yeah, that one we'll be getting into shortly. And by shortly, I mean whenever we get to it. But it's going to be a long-winded one. Yeah, so we'll get into BCW. As far as the Big Don, he's dating my cousin Melissa. I believe he just goes by Don now. And he's lost a lot of weight. Okay. I've actually seen him at like family parties of mine and stuff. So
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I talked to him like not often, but he actually invited me to go to the last MLW show that was out here. But I think something was. So
he's still into wrestling and everything. Like he still goes to indie shows and shit.
No, I think it's like a rarity, but he every once in a while because I think he's friends with Court Bauer maybe or something. Okay. Who runs MLW? I don't really know. But yeah, I guess it wouldn't be that difficult to have him tell us a little bit about the Raper. So at Kim Jong-ilmatic, we'll see what we can do.
Please enlighten us.
So that's it for this week on Bittermarks Podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bittermarks and email us at bittermarks@gmail.com. Peewee, you got anything else for him?
No, thanks for listening, guys. FTT.
Please, Hammer, don't hurt him.